Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings upon you all. So, dear students, today we're going to deal with interfaces. So, interfaces is a very important topic in case of the Java. Say what we said earlier, that interfaces are 100% abstract classes, right? So interface are nothing but a pure abstract class. So means like the first difference what we have in an abstract class and an interface is abstract class has concrete methods as well as abstract methods, and it could have any kind of data fields, right? But interfaces can have methods which are abstract, right? It can't have the methods which are concrete, and it could have the data fields, but that should be final, means constants. Okay, so the methods which we have will be the public abstract interface. In the interface, it is by default any method you create in an interface, that will be by default public and abstract. And if you have variables, that will be public, static and final. So you remember in the interfaces, if we have variables, they will be always public, static and final. And if you have methods, they will be always public, abstract. Got it? Now you don't write these things, or you don't write. For example, in the interface I will say int I, that will be public, static, final, and methods will be public, abstract by default. So you write them or you don't write them. Let's do it in a program to understand this. For example, here I'm creating an interface. Let me name it intf interface 1 maybe. Now this is my interface, right? And if I'm writing in it int I, okay, so this will be by default public, static, final. So public, static, we have already discussed them in a great deal, and the final also we had discussed that it means something constant. So it will have some error if you see, because this is a constant. Okay, it's a little distraction here. Okay, let's carry on. I'm saying that we have the int I. This is always public, static, final. You write it or don't write it. But when you say final, it means constant. So constant can't be variable. If you say only I, it's a variable, I have to give some value to it, say 23. Now it doesn't complain, because now what the main point to remember is, you say int I only, or you don't write this, like I cut it. Okay, int I is equal to 23, I'm saying it is public, static, final. Similarly, if I have some void function in it, say for example show, this got to be abstract. You can't have a body of this in the interface. If I try to create a body of this, so in case of my abstract class, it would not have been a problem, because abstract class can have concrete methods. But in case of my interface, as it's the information is showing, that interface methods can't have body. You can't have a body. So you need to have only, you need to have guys here which don't have any body, right? So as we know, the abstract method is someone who has only the head, is it, without a body, is it or not? So this is a headed method, which is only it is like a prototype, but this need to be overridden by the subclasses. Okay, so this method, what I'm saying, you write it or you don't write it. As if I say you write it here or you don't write the guy public, static, final. Now this one is public, the scope is public. You understand that, because when you override, this has some effect. And if this one is the abstract. And interface, difference between interface and abstract class, as I said, that interface can have data like I, so data field, but it should be final, public and static. And if you have a method, it should be public and abstract, right? And if you don't write it, it's still that. Okay. And if I don't write this like this, okay, it is still public abstract, right? But if I try to give it a different access, like access modifier, like protected, it will show me the error because protected is not allowed here. Or even I give a private, it's still not allowed. And if I don't write and don't think, this is a main confusion in a Java programmers, that they think if you don't write, it is a default, but in the interface it is not a default, it is public abstract. Okay, you have to understand that if you don't write, like I don't write here anything, it is not default, it is the public static final. So you write it or you don't write it, it's like that. Good. So we could have another interface, like I have interface intf second. Okay, and in it I'm having some, I can have the constants or I can have the functions here, like I'm having here public abstract function, that is my like void display. For example, we could have them much sensible functions. So can I have a body here? Can I do like this? No, because this is interface, it can't have a body. It's a pure abstract class. We need to have only abstract methods inside. Got it or not? Let me create another interface here. INTRFC interface intf3. Okay, and I'm gonna say extends intf1. That means I want to extend interface f3 from interface f1. Can I say comma intf2? This is multiple inheritance. So can I have a multiple inheritance here, that this guy inheriting from end f1 interface into f2? This could have been a problem, if this would not have an interface but a class, because class cannot inherit from more than one class. So the multiple inheritance is not allowed in case of Java, but with interfaces we can do that, because there is no problem of the ambiguity. Why we disallowed the multiple inheritance? Because we had a situation of ambiguity. You must be knowing that. But in case of interfaces, there is no question ambiguity, because we are not having any method here, right, with the body. This is just a prototype stuff, which is telling that the guy who is implementing tomorrow the interface has to implement that method. So having show, for example, you got show from here, this guy also has a show here, like here we got a void show. It doesn't have an effect because, okay, I have a void show here, void show is also here. This is same, you say public abstract void is again the same thing. So this guy will get show from here, show from here. It has no effect because the interfaces are not actually implementing the show. They are nothing but a contract with a particular class which implements the interface. You have to understand also that classes implement interface and interfaces extend interfaces. Okay, I have a question. Can interface extend a class? If we have some class, say I have a class A, can my interface extend A here also? Okay, this will give us a problem because a class can have a discrete methods, concrete methods, and some data members which are not final public static. Okay, so when you try to inherit from that, so that means that those all guys become the part of interface, but interface cannot have those things. So interface cannot extend from a class. You have to understand that. Okay, interface can extend from the interfaces into F1 into F2, right? So like for example, that means I'm saying that int F3 inherits from these two guys. Whatever is here, that is the part of the interface F3. So interface F3 has the public, this the int I, it has a show, it has also let me cut it out because this has no meaning now, and display. So all the three is here in the int F. So if now I have a class A, for example, where I want to implement all these three things. So there's no need to say that implement is a keyword. I do not have to say into F1 or into F2 because already F3 has these two guys. They have been extended into it. So I can say that class A implements. Remember, implements is a keyword. Extends for inheritance and implements for the interfaces. Implements int F3, right? So class A implements into F3, but if I'm saying class A is implementing into F3, that means it has to go by contract. The contract is whatever the methods here, like show, like display, these two methods are already in the into F3. By inheritance, they have gone into it because this into F3 is extending. So this show and display is here, right? And your class A is implementing into F3 interface third, right? Then it has to implement those methods. Okay, if it doesn't implement those methods, there will be an error, because if we're saying class A implements into F3, so whatever into F3 has a contract that these methods gotta be implemented by some class. That is what we say class A should implement into F3, right? That can help us later on for the polymorphism as well. So what I'm gonna do is I gotta have a body of the display, I gotta have a body of the show in a class which is implementing my implementing the interface, right? Good. So let us try to implement the things here, like show. I will say void show, for example. Okay, this is my method in which I say system dot out dot something. I'm just letting you understand the concept, not as some program on some problem, right? Okay, I will say like hello or something, and I will try to implement the void display. Okay, and I will say here, let me copy this and just paste it. Okay, let me say here salam. Okay, now the error is not going because we have to implement the show, right? If I don't write here the public abstract, okay, void show, if it is I don't write here public abstract, it's void display, it is public abstract, it is public abstract. But if I don't write here in a class, it is not a public abstract, it is rather default. So I'm having here the show function which is public abstract. So abstract, leave it abstract, it is a public, the scope is public, but here the scope is default. So public has a more access than a default, so that means I'm limiting my access. I can't do it when you have to override this, right? We can increase the scope but not restrict. So I have to write explicitly public, otherwise this will have an error. So also here public, right? So I'm having public void show and public void display, and these two guys are basically implementing my methods of show and display. But there is unfortunately some error still. What is this? Duplicate class Juni A. Where from the where two class A's? Where is class A? On the top I have made the class in the beginning. Oh, leave it. Now we don't have any error, right? If I would have not written a public here, this was an error because you cannot restrict the the scope. So I have to say public. You getting me or not? Good. So now this class A is good to go. I can create an object of this class A and work on it, not a problem. But the main issue what I was talking about the interface is here, that interface can have a methods, and if it has at all any data variable, it need to be public static final. Okay, and if you have a method, that need to be public abstract. Getting me or not? Good. One more thing here, if I have the interface here int ERFAC interface intf4, okay, and it's having something in it, say for example it has int a is equal to 78, we have to give the value which is the final, you can't keep it alone, and we have some word do something in it, while add function. So this is a public abstract, right? And my class A is implementing intf3, okay, and if I say comma intf4, what do you see about that? So there's no problem whatsoever. You can implement multiple interfaces, again like a multiple inheritance, but it's not purely multiple inheritance, because the interface doesn't have the actual things there. So multiple inheritance means that you get things from the one class and the second class into the child class, but here we have nothing, actually no methods in the F3 or F4. They are only the on the heads without bodies. So it's the class A who will implement it, so there's no problem whatsoever that you can implement multiple interfaces. And also, but here if you could see there's an error. Only error here is because you have to go by the contract. The contract is you gotta implement this wired add somewhere. So say for example I'm just going to wired add, okay, I'm implementing it, but I have to say public, because if I skip this thing here, it is by default public and abstract because it's interface, but in the class I need to put a public in front of the add. So maybe here I say system.out.println add function under construction. Okay, we got some masons here, they're working, don't worry. So we are good to go, there's no problem now. So my class is implementing not only interface F3, interface F3 itself is extending F1 and F2. That means an interface can extend multiple interfaces, okay, an interface cannot extend a class, right? An interface can extend one interface or multiple interfaces, and a class can implement one interface or multiple interfaces. And what about the extents? Because my class can extend also some other classes. If for example I have a class B here, right here, which has some values like int something, say f, I have some values f. Should I give it f is equal to something? No, it's a class, and my class A can extend from the B, right? Getting me? So how to extend it as well as implement? We can do both here, but the extends should come first. Extends should come first, extends class B and implements these guys. So my class A is doing a lot of things. It's extending class B. So that's whatever is in a B that goes to the A. That means what is called inheritance. And is also implementing interface F3 and interface F4. That means it has to go by the contract. Are you getting me or not? So yeah, we are doing a lot of things here which you need to keep in the mind. I guess you gotta have a copy, write it down, make notes on it, and just then recap it and you are good to go. That's great. Now let's do a little bit more. Here, let's suppose we have here a void test, a function inside the class A, right? Okay, and in the A I am doing system dot out dot println, and I want to print that I want to print I, right? I is somewhere in the interface 1, because interface 1 I has gone to the interface F3 because it extends interface F1, and that has gone to the to the A because it implements F3. So if I print it I, this will print me 23. Let's do some twists. We have a public class Juniper, we have main function, we create an object of A type object is something ob is equal to new of A using default constructor. Now if I say ob dot test function, I gotta give it a go to see what is the output. Now if you could see, it is 23. So 23 was the value in the in I, 23. What does this mean? This means what is an interface, some constants, these all by implementing interface, those are getting inherited into the class as well. So you're inheriting by the extents, you can also inherit by the implement, right? Good. But what if I have in a class A, I have my own int of I is equal to 90, right? So now if I give it a go, and you could see now my I value which is given is 90, not that what was that 23, not that 23, right? Because what happens is if you have a local value I, for example local value I, this will override the interface I. Now this class A has the I from the interface F3, yeah, because F1 got into the F3 by the extension here. So it has the I, so it has both I's, one I from the into F3 and also from the from its own, so it will print it out its own, right? Good. Now what else if I have in all interfaces this I? Say for example this is an I here, in the int F2 I have the int I is equal to 87, and these two are in the int F3 already. So int F4 is also having the I as 78. This is my I, for example 78, and int I is going 90. But if I go to go, this is not a problem because we always override our local value will always override. But if now I do not have a I of local I, then this is a problem because we have multiple copies of I. Now we have multiple copies of I. Now the compiler will be confused that which I gonna call, because one I is from the interface 1, one I is from the interface 2, they are all here. So one I is from the interface F4. So class A will have I from the interface 1, interface 2, and interface F4. So question is, compiler will be confused that which I gotta print out. So here in that case, if I say it that print me the int F4 dot I have to explicitly tell him that which I, because we have many I's now which are coming from many functions. Are you getting me? Many interfaces, sorry. So I have to explicitly tell him to resolve the conflict. Are you getting me or not? So if I give it a go, and you will see it will be F4's. F4, somewhere F4, yeah, 78, right? Good. Or I could say here F1. So that will be that 23 from F1. That will be printed out. No problem whatsoever, because here we go to the I23. Or I could say F2, F into F1, F2. If I say F2, it is again not a problem because we have the 87. But what else if I say F3 into F3? It again a problem because F3 has got 2. Now F3 has got two I's because the F3 is extending. F3 is extending from F1 and F2, right? So it has two I's. One from the what is this? One from the interface F1 and one from the interface F2. It's again a problem. We got to resolve it. We have to exactly tell him which eye we want. Now we deal with a couple more issues here. For example, my interface F4 also has the wide, it has wide added, it has also the wide show. Okay, SHOW. Now we already had a wide show in a class A, in the interface F1 we had a wide show, and here also we have a show function into F4, and my class is extending F4 as well as F3, right? So the question is, now we have two shows to be implemented as per the contract, but the question is, should my class A implement wide show once or twice? So answer is, it should be once. That we implemented once, that's implemented for both F3 and F4, because what F3 is having contract is saying that, hey class A, you should implement a show function with the following signatures, and in F4 is also saying that class A should implement my wide show function with these signatures. So we have already there. So class F3 will look into interface F3 will look into the class, is it going by the contract or not? It is going, and F4 will also look at it, and it's also going with the contract. So both of these are happy with the show function. Okay, let's go to twist now. Say for example this public show, okay, let me cut it down. We have this, cut it and paste it. We have wide show function, no problem whatsoever. This is, it need not be public, it is a abstract method. Okay, is it abstract method? No, it is what? So you are sleeping, so wake up. This is what? This is a default method, and I'm putting in a class B, and class is extending class B means whatever is in a B, it's gonna be the part of the A. So should this method suffice that contract of wide show? Because it is the part of this, right? It will suffice, but only thing is we have to write it public, because when it gets on here it should be public wide show. Then this will be called as the overridden method of these guys, of this wide show and wide show from the interface F4, right? Getting me? So we can have a class B which is implementing actually the particular method, but it should have the same signatures and the scope should be public, which is then class A is extending that class, and we can have that in it, and it suffices the contract of F3 and F4 here. Are you getting me or not? One last thing which I will tell you is that, again, like an abstract class is, we can't instantiate that, we can't create an object of that, but we can create the reference variables. So similarly, if we want to create like int F4, interface F4 type some OB2 object, but I will not create a new, I can say like this is equal to new of interface 4 constructor. Now if I am saying this, it is still a wrong thing, interface F4 for example, because interface F4 cannot have a constructor, right? So as the information is coming, interface 4 is an abstract, it can't be instantiated, you can't instantiate it, and the interfaces are not having a constructor. To understand that we don't have constructors in the interfaces, right? This is yet another difference between abstract class interfaces, because abstract class can have constructors, it can have the data members, it can have the concrete methods, but it should have also the abstract method, right? But in a what's called as interface, we have only abstract methods, and if we have at all any data member, it should be public, static, final. Okay, so here we're gonna fix it, and at the end we're gonna fix it here. We got to say it like this, right? And we can do same way we did in abstract classes, that we drop the address of any subclass into the OB2, the class who implements it. That's also the third difference, I can say, the implement, right? we have with the classes we have extends, or abstract class also extends, but with the interface we have implements keyword, and we can implement multiple interfaces. Okay, are you getting me or not? We cannot extend multiple classes with the class, but we can extend multiple interfaces with the interface. I think this is enough for today. So next thing will be implementation of interfaces. That will give you a better idea that where we use interfaces, like in cloning and all. So take very good care of yourself, and ma salama.